Hello everybody, welcome to this video. Today we will be learning about the fundamentals of MCP, Model Context Protocol. So what is MCP? MCP is a Model Context Protocol which basically is a standard interfacing AI with tools. For example, you can compare that with a USB-C interface in hardware where you can connect different USB-C interfaces to different USB-C peripherals to your computer using USB-C standard, right? Similarly, the Model Context Protocol is a standardized way to interface your AI tools, right? So basically you can decouple the model logic with your service code from your service code. You can decouple model logic from your service code. And it can be very easily extensible to any device or a API. So let's look at what is MCP, right? So MCP you can easily describe as a communication between the model. This is your model, right? LLM model, or it could be your even AI client or your application, right? So this is your client or AI client or model application. So now it's communication between those two. So you have the MCP server here, right? So this is your MCP server. So there's a communication between these two, right? So your model server, your model will, or your AI client will send a request to the MCP server. The request can be a simple message, right? So it could be a message like this. Let me show you this. So it could be a message like this. So it is requesting information from the MCP server. So it could be a message like this. So basically saying that JSON-RPC 2.0 method is a list of services. So it is sending a message to the MCP server asking to provide the list of services, right? And in return, this server will respond back, right? So this server will respond back with the message, with the details, right? For example, this could be as simple as this, right? So it could be as simple as this, where it is saying that, okay, the RPC, JSON-RPC is 2.0, ID is 1, which was referenced here, and the result is big IP, right? So this is a simple protocol actually. So all the MCP server will follow this kind of standard where when they talk to each other, they will, model will request to this MCP server will respond back. So this is a standard where, so you can talk to any of the services, right? Or any of the tools. That's the idea. So I'm having a proof of concept here. So I have two files like we talked about, the MCP server, and then I have the LLM client file, right? So let's talk about the MCP server. Let me show this a little bit. So this is the MCP server file. So here you can see that we have this particular file returns a list of services. For example, big IP is one of the service, right, which it returns. And then there is big IP virtual server is another list. So this is another list which returns the name and destination of the virtual server. And this is the API for that. And there is another one, which is another method which returns the pool members, right? For example, this is the one API which returns the pool member. So what we're going to do is actually start the MCP server, and then we're going to start the client also eventually, right? So here actually I do have an environmental file where the details about the big IP are existing, details like credential for big IP address, as well as username and password is there in the environmental file. So I'm going to start the MCP server. Now to start the MCP server, you just need to go here and basically start the MCP server, right? So run that particular file. So you can see that my server is running now. So now my server is running here actually with this IP. So now if I go to the client, my client will be calling this particular server, right? And that's what we will see by running so this is the client file. So the client basically loads the credential from the environmental file, and it defines these three functions. So let me show you those functions like big IP run function, tmsh command. Yeah, so basically these are the functions: run tmsh, then get the virtual server, big IP get virtual server, and get pool members, right? And then ask the LLM to pick one based on your question, right? So when you ask the question, okay, list me the number of virtual servers, in that case, function will pick one of these, the AI client will pick one of these functions depending upon the questions being asked to the LLM. Like when you say retrieve a list of LTM virtual server from big IP. Yeah. Okay. So let's run let's run the client now. So I can open another terminal. So we have these two files. So I'm going to run Python AI LLM client and with my prompt. So my prompt could be list me the virtual server, right? Could be as simple as this. Let's enter. You basically now what it's going to do is actually talk to the, so here you can see that, so here I'm running the Python client. So I'm running the AI LLM client and asking list me the virtual server, and it responded back giving me all the virtual server, right? Similarly, I can also ask questions like list me the pool members, right? So here you can see that I'm asking list me the pool members, and now it is talking to the MCP server in talking to the big IP to get all the details of the pool member as well as the pool information. Okay, so now let's draw this again. So we have the last time whatever we draw. So this is your LLM, and we have another box which is the MCP server, right? This is your MCP server. So let me draw that. This is your MCP server, and this MCP server is also can talk to multiple, big IP, right? So you have the big IP here as well. For example, you have, this is let's say big IP, or it could be any other device. Means obviously you have to write the code for that. So this is the big IP, right? So you have this way, you have RPC going on between MCP server, your model. It's not directly, but basically it goes through your AI client, right? So this is your AI client, which we saw that file, that is the AI LLM client. Sorry, this is your AI LLM client file or code, which we saw. And that basically goes and talks to the LLM. And the final reply goes through the LLM. So final reply text will come through the LLM. So this is your JSON-RPC, which is going on between those two devices. So here is the explanation. So here you have the startup config, which is your environmental file where you define all the things which are required. Then basically the user, when it runs, like when we ran this, so we are typically running Python, this LLM file, and then asking like list all pool members and their members. So that is the user input. So now this is fed to the LLM. So the LLM basically, so this is the question, right? Your input is the question. So it asks the LLM to pick a function. So looking at the question, LLM will decide which function call to select. So in this case, it is using big IP get pools function, which we saw earlier. So it also creates a RPC message to translate to the MCP server, right? So for example, creates a JSON payload with this details, the method asking to use this method, right? And that is sent to the RPC to your MCP server. So basically the MCP server receives that message. And then the MCP server will make a API call or REST call to the big IP device, right? And the big IP basically, for each pool, it will ask, give me the members, right? And once it gets the response back, it extracts the response and send the data back to the LLM, right, with all the details. LLM will generate this reply back, extracting the pool members, right, pool 1 and pool 2. So typically in this particular, so typically if you look at things which are involved here, are you have the user, right? So you have the user here with the AI client application which we saw, and then we have the MCP server. So this is your MCP server, and then we have the big IP, big IP. So between here, user and the client MCP server, you will have the RPC messages being sent across each other, right, depending upon what inputs you are sending to the MCP server. You also have a LLM here, right? So you will have a LLM here as well. So basically the LLM will take all your inputs, and then finally the LLM will ask which function to use and send that information to MCP server, and MCP server will make a API call to big IP to get all the information, right? Like in terms of pool members and so on. So if you look at the big IP, so here you can see we have the pool details. Like if you go to the members, you will see all the pool members here. And that's what we pretty much saw in the output, right? So we saw all those pool members. So similarly, we can also ask, list me the virtual server, and it will, like we already did that. Actually, it listed all the virtual server which are there, right? Like if I go to big IP here, you can see that it is listing those virtual servers. So what you can do is actually to scale this, you can also have multiple, you can have containerize this MCP server. So you can have containers running. Depending upon your load, this container will be activated. It will talk to the big IP, right? You can have multiple big IPs here, right? And build the POC that way. So this is just one idea actually. So let me go back to GitHub and show you guys where is all that information. If you go to my repository, here you will see that you have the details for the code, right? So you will see all the codes here and the server flow information as well. Thank you for watching.